Have you ever felt like you could never forgive someone? It's as if the weight of your anger and hurt is too much to carry. No matter how hard you try, those feelings seem to keep dragging you down. You've probably asked yourself, how could I ever let go of something this painful? These emotions are so real, so raw, and they seem to take up residence deep within our hearts. But have you ever stopped to think that the very thing you might be holding on to, the pain, the anger, the bitterness, could be the very thing that's keeping you from experiencing true peace, the peace that Jesus offers, a peace that surpasses all understanding? And what if I told you that forgiveness, yes, forgiveness, is the key to unlocking that peace? This is the story of James, a man whose life, once filled with love and hope, was shattered by betrayal. For months, James lived with the heavy burden of unforgiveness, unable to release the grip of anger that had taken hold of his heart. He felt broken, lost, and completely overwhelmed. Every day was a struggle, and he found himself wondering if he would ever find his way back to peace. But as James stood at a crossroads in his life, something profound began to happen, something that would change him forever. James had always believed in the power of faith and forgiveness. He had heard the teachings of Jesus his whole life, those words that cut through the noise and speak directly to the heart. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Yet, when betrayal hit him like a thunderstorm, those teachings seemed distant, like an old memory he could no longer grasp. How could he forgive the one person he trusted most? How could he let go of the pain that had been caused by someone he loved so deeply? The betrayal, when it happened, felt like a lightning strike. It left James in pieces, questioning everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and forgiveness. He had spent years building a life with his wife, only for it all to come crashing down in one painful moment. But instead of peace, James found himself drowning in anger. Each day felt heavier than the last. Every interaction with his wife became an emotional battlefield. The resentment was suffocating, and James didn't know how to break free. But then, something changed. After months of torment, there was a quiet moment. Just James, alone in a room, sitting in silence, staring at the walls. His mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts, but one question stood above them all. What is holding me back from letting go? He knew in his heart that forgiveness was the only answer, but the pain felt so deep that he couldn't see a way through it. Yet, it was in that moment of silence, when everything seemed to come to a halt, that James began to hear something clearer than ever before. The still, small voice of God, speaking to his heart, telling him that forgiveness wasn't about the other person. It was about freeing himself. It was at that moment that he remembered the words of Jesus. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. James realized that forgiveness wasn't just a gift he gave to someone else, it was a gift he gave to himself. It wasn't about excusing the wrongs done to him or making it easy for the one who hurt him. It was about releasing the chains that held him captive. It was about taking back control of his peace and his joy. It was about healing. James decided to take the first step towards forgiveness. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was one of the hardest things he'd ever done. But James knew that God would help him. He didn't have to do it on his own. He could lean on God's strength, God's grace, and God's love. So James prayed. He prayed with all his heart, asking God to help him let go of the bitterness and to show him how to forgive. And you know what happened? That night, something inside him shifted. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic change, but there was a sense of lightness that James hadn't felt in a long time. It was like a weight was lifted off his chest. It didn't mean the hurt was gone, but it meant that James had taken the first step in the healing process. Forgiveness was no longer just an idea, it was now something he was actively working toward. In the days that followed, James began to understand what forgiveness really meant. It wasn't about pretending the hurt never happened. It wasn't about saying everything was okay when it wasn't. Forgiveness was about releasing the hold that anger and pain had over his life. Forgiveness was about allowing himself to heal so he could live again, fully and freely. James's next step was to face his wife. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He knew there were still raw emotions on both sides, but he also knew that if he didn't take this step, he would never be free. So he sat down with her. They talked, really talked, for the first time in months. And while the conversation was difficult, it was also deeply healing. James didn't just forgive her with words, he forgave her with his heart. And in that moment, as he let go of the anger, he also opened the door to a new chapter in their marriage. But here's the thing, James didn't just forgive for her, he forgave for himself. And in doing so, he experienced the transformative power of God's love. Forgiveness became the key to his own peace. It became the key to rebuilding not just his relationship with his wife, but also his relationship with God. The more James forgave, the more he felt the presence of God in his life. It was as if God had been waiting for James to make that choice all along, waiting to heal him, waiting to restore him. As James looked at his wife, he realized that their journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. But now it was a journey of healing, not just from the pain of betrayal, but from the weight of unforgiveness. Together, they walked forward, not as perfect people, but as people willing to try again, willing to love again, and most importantly, willing to forgive. And that's where James found his peace, not in the absence of pain, but in the presence of forgiveness. It wasn't an easy road. It took time, it took prayer, and it took faith, but it was worth it. Because forgiveness isn't just something we do for others, it's something we do for ourselves. It's the path to healing, it's the path to freedom, it's the path to peace. If you're carrying the burden of unforgiveness, I want to encourage you today. Let go. Forgive. You don't have to do it alone. God is there with you, ready to help you find the strength to release the anger, the pain, and the bitterness. He is ready to help you heal. He is ready to help you find peace. Forgiveness doesn't mean that what happened was okay. It just means you're ready to let go of the weight that's been holding you back. It means you're ready to walk in the light of God's love, free from the chains of resentment and hurt. So, I ask you, what is holding you back? What pain are you carrying that God is waiting to help you release? Whatever it is, let it go. Take that first step toward healing, just like James did. And in doing so, you'll find the peace that God promises to those who forgive. Remember, forgiveness is a gift. It's a gift that not only heals relationships, but it also heals you. It frees your heart, it frees your soul, and it opens the door to a life of peace, joy, and love, just as God intended. If you found this message helpful, please share it with someone you know who might need to hear it. Let's spread the power of forgiveness and healing. Let's share the peace that only God can give. Thank you for watching, and remember, with God's grace you can forgive, you can heal, and you can find the peace you've been searching for.